Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. Who doesn't love a vacation? Am I right? Sure, traveling is less than wonderful, but once you get to your destination, it's all worthwhile. As a kid growing up in a video store, I've mentioned how movies were my ticket out of a small town in Oregon to all over the world and beyond. Unfortunately, for my love of post apocalyptic movies, most of those places were decimated by nuclear fallout and ravaged by mutants. But even wastelands have frog towns. Am I right? Perhaps that's my memoir. Even wastelands have frog towns. It's hopeful. When we think of vacations, it's almost always the destination. I hope I get to lounge at the pool. I hope the weather's nice. I hope there's complimentary champagne in the room. I hope my room isn't facing the pool, which opens at 7 a.m. I hope there's coffee after 2. But it's rarely the people who keep everything running smoothly, and that's what's at the heart of this episode. People working in hospitality, be it in a restaurant or in the capacity of a hotel or a lodge, are near and dear to my heart. They take on so much and deal with so many people's various needs. And often people traveling, which, let's be honest, who's at their best with flight delays, traffic, sleep deprivation, etc. I just have the utmost respect, and this episode is a tribute to those individuals who every day cater to the needs of so many, which this episode's only possible because of our wonderful guest and a fantastic movie. I love everything about this movie, which I'm sure you'll get that vibe by the time this episode ends. I can't wait any longer. So let's check into this episode. The film is The Innkeepers. The guest is a hotel lodge general manager, and this is VH Us. Hello and welcome to VHS, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has the profession or experience portrayed in the film. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I encourage you to rate and review any podcast you enjoy, maybe this one. Also, our Threadless shop has all original artwork from the episodes. You can find it in a variety of formats, and the Patreon has clever film musings that you can check out over there, so please support us and the artists that we support. My guest for this episode has worked every position in a hotel, motel, lodge situation. It's Mathew Wilkins. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Now, my family loves hotel life, but that means something different for us probably than you. When you go places, do you look at hotels to stay in, or are you like, I want an Airbnb, I want something further from work?
No, I usually opt for hotels myself.
Yeah.
They do feel at home to me as well. All of my friends the last few years, they always, seem to go the Airbnb route, but then there's all these like weird rules and you have to like, I don't know. I appreciate hotels for what they offer by way of convenience.
Yes. Yeah. No, I do too. It's two very different ways, I think, of vacationing, Well, the film that brings us together is The Innkeepers from 2011. I know this wasn't a first-time watch for you, so when did you encounter The Innkeepers?
Well, I think probably maybe right after it went to video. I have a memory of, I think, watching it through like iTunes back when people rented movies through iTunes.
Yeah.
And I heard it was this hotel movie, and I got into hotels in 2007. And so like I think I had probably been a manager for a short time at that point. But watching it recently, I definitely did through like different eyes. Like I think I was so young in the hotel industry at that time. I had a totally different experience watching it again recently, just with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. At the time of this recording, it's streaming, it's on Blu-ray, but I'd be remiss if I didn't encourage you to support your local video store like Movie Madness right here in Portland, Oregon. The synopsis is 2 employees at the Yankee Peddler Inn who, during its last weekend of operations, attempt to document the alleged supernatural activity in the building. It's written, edited, and directed by Ty West, who did House of the Devil, X, Pearl, The Sacrament, In the Valley of Violence, Cabin Fever 2. The film stars Sarah Paxton, who was in Shark Night, Cheap Thrills, Barbarian, and Pat Healy, who was also in Cheap Thrills, Killers of the Flower Moon, and The Mill, and Ghost World. Oh gosh, and who could forget? I forget every time. Kelly McGillis is in this movie because she's a lot older than when she was in Top Gun, and so I don't, automatically think of her. But then I'm like, who is this actress? She's really good, and it turns out, well, that's Kelly McGillis from Witness and The Accused.
Witness is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, rad! Yeah, it's a powerful film. And then our cinematographer Elliot Rocket, who always works with Ty and just does beautiful work. When I first saw The Innkeepers, that's really what blew me away was like the cinematography and the sound. And then rewatching it for this conversation, same thing. I was like, man, this is a small film done so well.
Yeah.
Man.
I think the audio is what I noticed the most
Yeah.
last night.
Well, I was watching with headphones on too. I don't know if
Okay.
you were, but with headphones, it's really it's in there. It's impressive because the music also we should mention by Jeff Grace, who's the composer, and it's just like really classy. But he also plays a lot with almost like concrete noise, like lots of reverberating bass that just kind of rattles you, and it
Hmm.
kind of unnerves you in a very clever way. Um, yeah, so kudos to all involved in the film. It was shot in 18 days, 2 of which Ty West had food poisoning. So that leaves 16 to be really focused, I guess. But that's all my notes, so let's just press play on The Innkeepers. We start off with classy, creepy tunes, which set the tone for our ghostly tale. We get a title card saying Chapter 1, The Long Weekend. And we see Sarah approach the inn, and she's met by Pat Healy. They just really quickly introduce us to our 2 main characters.
What's up, Claire?
Hey.
So this is it, huh? Just you and me? End of days?
Yeah. Have you talked to Ron lately?
Ron is in Barbados snorkeling for the ever-elusive double-back saddlefish, and he left explicit instructions not to be disturbed.
Yeah, well, if you own this place, you'd be out to Barbados, too.
Sure I would, especially if I had 2 saps back at home waiting to cover for me.
And we know that this inn is on its way out, very clever wordplay, but we don't know how long these 2 have been there. So you mentioned 2007 was your start, is that right?
Yeah.
So what brought you to hotels?
I moved to California, when I was 23 with like no real plan, just other than to get a job. And the first year I got here, I worked at an animal sanctuary, more of a ranch. It was
Okay.
like a rest home for farm animals. And, that was a really neat job. I learned to like weld and drive a tractor and, throw bales of hay. But it got to be a bit much just being out, in the elements every day. And I was living in Shell Beach, which is just north of Pismo Beach at the
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
And it's just a little row of hotels along a cliff. And so I just walked into a couple of hotels and I've been in one ever since.
Wow.
Yeah. So
What was that first position?
front desk.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect for this conversation.
Yeah. And then I've done several times throughout that period night audit, which I feel like this movie bleeds into night audit for sure.
Okay, and how would you define that?
So hotel world is built around 3 shifts, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and night audit, which is 11 to 7. And 7 to 3 is like you're more organized, just kind of people who want to get in, do the checklist, do paperwork, get done, get out of there. 3 to 11 is kind of your slackers. They're not going to do your paperwork like you want them to do,
Okay.
but they're going to be good in a pinch.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to stand there and deal with some serious guest issues, could do some light maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like different skill sets. There's a little war. The morning shift's always mad at PM shift and just
Right.
a lot of blame getting planted around. And then night auditors are just like the oddest ducks you've ever met. Like it takes a special person to be like, there's 2 kinds of night auditors. There's ones that are like career night auditors and they're like lighthouse keepers. They're just special breed. And then there's people who are trying to burn the candle at both ends. They already have a job and they want extra money. And they're like, I'm going to come in and do night audit. And it's like, those people never last. Like either you're up all night, like every night on your own, you're not going to be able to do both.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When I was a social worker, I just briefly worked at a place where it was overnight shift. And that's a weird life, man, when you're getting off work, when people are just getting up and like, it's weird. You don't see a large swath of humanity because it's just the night people. Oh, that's fascinating. All right. Well, back in the film, they're going to conduct a paranormal investigation. So Pat shows her a video of a rocking chair. We get a classic jump scare off that video, which was the real reaction. They didn't show her that video beforehand.
Oh, really?
And then just that's a true shock that we see on display there. We get some lighthearted music as Sarah heads to her room and sees a mother and a child. Do you get to stay in the rooms?
Periodically, there's need to. Really, usually it's a bad thing because you're just being like, somebody didn't come in.
Understaffed.
you're understaffed,
Mhm.
or like there's some situation where like you're gonna have to be there so late and be back so early that it just doesn't make sense to even go home.
Right.
So yeah,
Do you have stuff just in case that happens, or are you just like, I'll wear the same clothes tomorrow?
I would probably wear the same clothes
Okay.
tomorrow
Yeah.
if that was the case. Yeah, I mean maybe you plan for it. You know, I was a little curious on like there's no time clocks in this movie,
Hmm.
so I don't know, just like thinking through the logistics of it, I'm like, are they working 212s, or they both just seem to kind of work all the time, and then he takes a couple of naps, but
Yeah. What about parties? Like employees partying in vacant rooms? Is that something that ever happens?
yeah, unfortunately, there's kind of two states for a hotel. Like when a hotel's like busy and
Mhm.
like there's people coming and going every day, that's when things work and like things are going right.
Yeah.
And it's actually when things are really slow that weird things start to happen where you're just going to randomly check if this room has a particular type of picture frame or art, or you're just checking one weird little thing, a room you would never go to outside of your normal pattern. And you walk in and there's like two employees like snuggling watching like a reality show. Like that definitely happens. My first hotel, the manager, my boss, and the GM used to pick apart a room every day, put it out of order, and like that would be their party room for the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know. I haven't pushed it that far myself,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've definitely stayed in a few rooms,
Sure.
Yeah.
Out of necessity.
Out of necessity.
Right, of
Yeah.
course. Well, she turns on the TV and we hear Larry Fessenden. He's one of the producers on the film. Every year he throws a party in real life and does a 30-minute puppet show, and that's what the audio is lifted from for this
Really.
section. Yeah, and I just want to go to Larry Fessenden's puppet show. That's all I want to do. That sounds amazing, but at least we get a taste here.
This festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute.
Later, Sarah heads down and Pat's checking a lady into the inn. She's a celebrity, and so I have to ask, celebrity stories?
Yeah, I've had a few celebrities over the years just because I've always worked between Highway 1 and Highway 101,
Okay.
right? And I've always been between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So from time to time, there would be people rolling through. I think one of my favorites is probably Bone Thugs and Harmony, just because it was a
Yes.
really funny interaction, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good about guest privacy. Like I would never go make a thing about it,
Sure.
just because it's like I would have staff do it, but I'm trying to like set the example of like just be normal for 5 seconds, get them checked in.
Right.
But when I mean, this is kind of later in their career, so they're in a smaller type van, but it had a great airbrush like graphic on the side of Bone Thug, and I was thinking like, obviously at some point in my career, medical marijuana became legal, and like it was this weird kind of gray area of like, we're no smoking cigarettes or tobacco or anything, but marijuana smoke doesn't like impact the room as badly for whatever reason.
Sure.
And so it's kind of this gray area where it's like, are we enforcing it hard on the no smoking? Like only if it's a problem, right? Only if like we're getting complaints or whatever. So with Bone Thug, I was like, just gonna let him be. I came in 7:00 the next morning, and they're on the upper balcony, like right over the parking lot, facing the pool, and they're just smoking blunts, 7 a.m., throwing the football around. And I was just like, you know what? They get a pass.
Yeah. In a situation like that, you find yourself at a crossroads.
I'm just gonna leave him be.
Yeah.
I was a fan of the music.
Yeah, there you go. They talk more about the evidence of ghosts, which leads me to my next question. Any ghost stories?
Okay, none of the hotels I've worked at have ever been like new.
Okay,
probably the newest one I worked at was like built in maybe in the 80s or something like that. So it was probably the least haunted, but there's always someone at every hotel who claims they've seen this or that, People die in hotels.
Sure. Yeah, you can't stop that.
Yep. So I don't know. And also weird things happen. You're in a building at night, you're moving around. It can be creepy when you're there in the middle of the night by yourself, off season, it's super dark. And it's like, I'll be honest with you. I was like, what I've been afraid of in hotels is never supernatural. It's just regular people.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, especially being along a highway. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
So you never know who's going to just walk in. And I've
yeah.
worked at hotels that were like $400 a night, $500 a night. And I've worked at ones that were $79 a night. And it's like, you always have to drop your rates in the off season. You don't have any traffic. It turns into a little rate war.
Yeah.
But then like, probably in like 2015, it was started to be like, okay, you got to keep your rates above like 109. You get below 109.
Right.
It's like,
Yes.
it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first met my wife and we were talking about like, I think maybe we went on our first road trip or something. And this is, early mid 20s. And we stayed at a place and I was like, I don't want to stay at this place. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, they have floral bed sheets. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, if you go to a nice place, they don't have these cheap floral,
No.
like it's just, this is not happening. And she was like, oh my gosh. And that's when we started having the conversation that I was like, we vacation above our means. So it feels special. Like, it's like you
Right.
don't want to stay in a place less expensive than your normal lifestyle because that feels bad. Like, we don't go on a ton of vacations, but when we do, we're going to stay in a place where you feel like taken care of and there's like a level of customer service. And, it's like, that's what I appreciate so much about, as we call it, hotel life, is like the best employees, I think, are personable and professional. They're doing the job. They're not being fake to you. There's a sort of warmth there that you want to return back for,
Just genuine hospitality.
Yeah, well put.
You're my guest.
Yep.
You're welcome to be here, But I'm with you where it's like, I have some friends who definitely like can't afford to stay in nicer places and just always go for the cheapest place. And I'm like, you can afford better than this.
Yeah.
I know these housekeepers are getting like 12 minutes to clean, like 15 minutes to clean that room. It is far from clean.
Yep.
And definitely good hotel, bad hotel. Usually you can just sense the vibe right when you walk in.
Yes.
Either there's something off or you're like, oh, this is not so bad,
We stopped at a place in California and I think we were in Fresno, and we pulled off the highway. I was just looking on my phone and I was like, this place looks pretty good. My wife's like, look at all those pictures, beautiful pool. This is awesome. We got there. I don't know when those pictures were taken, but not any time recently. And we walked in, the pool was completely empty. The lady behind the cash register was like, yeah, here's a room. I went there, the remote didn't work, so I brought her the remote. I said, hey, I don't know if you have batteries, just, but I could just pop them in here. You don't need to send anyone. And she goes, you want a different room? And I said, what? And she just gave me another key. And I was like, now I have 2 rooms. This is insane. And so then I was walking back to my room and I saw some ladies of the night and I was like, oh, I get what this place is. And like, we slept on top of the covers that night.
Mm-hmm.
It was an experience, but yeah, you gotta have those updated photos. That's all.
Some recent reviews.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Back in the movie, Sarah brings towels up and gushes to the actress, and then she feels silly. So she goes next door to get coffee from Lena Dunham, which is shocking that I didn't know who she was when I first saw this movie, And then
Same.
Now you see it and you're like, what? She's just in this one scene. This coffee shop is the coffee shop that the cast and crew would go to when they shot House of the Devil. I just love that Ty West not only shoots in the same places with the same people, but he like goes to the same businesses. Lena has an epic speech, which we'll probably hear right about now.
Can I speak frankly with you? I mean, I know we don't know each other that well, but I see you all the time, and we're all girls here. This Sunday, my boyfriend is taking me on a picnic to the Bay, and I'm really excited. I know it's going to be super romantic, and I think that I'm not letting myself be fully excited because there's something in our relationship that's been bothering me, which is that we've been together for almost a year, and he still has not told me that he loves me. And I just need to talk to somebody about it because I don't want to ask him to tell me. I mean, he said it on IM. That's the thing. He said it on IM, which my friend says doesn't count. It's like saying I love you during sex. It doesn't count. And so I wonder if...
Sarah returns to the front desk, and it's her turn to work the front of the desk. Now, you've worked in hotels and the like. When you go on vacation, what are your favorite things to do in a hotel?
I always choose a hotel with a gym.
Awesome.
Even if I don't always use it,
Yeah.
I always optimistically am hoping I'll make it down there. So that is one of the things I look for. I like a pool.
Yes.
I like a nice pool. If you get that little dip in the morning before checkout, that's a good start to the day. Other than that, I like staying at like cool historic places,
Mm-hmm.
but I also, if I'm in like the hinterland, like on the I-80 or something like that, I just go for a Hampton.
Yeah. Reliable.
Yeah, it's a nice consistent product.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on the road, sometimes you're just looking for consistency.
Yeah. My favorite thing to do is to get a drink at the bar and then take the elevator. There's something
Okay.
about being able to get a beverage and just be in an elevator. It's the only time I would ever do it. And so it just feels like a very vacation thing for me to do. The other one is in McMinnville here in Oregon. There's a hotel called the Atticus. And when you stay there, anytime you come in, they ask if you want an espresso. And they have an espresso machine and they'll just pull you an espresso or whatever drink you'd like. And I just like to sit there. We usually go around Christmas time, so it's all decorated and everything. And I just sit in this like beautiful lobby and just have an espresso, just whatever time of night. And the other thing is when we go to San Diego, I get my wife a margarita and get my daughter a cup of maraschino cherries from the bar for them to have while they're in the hot tub. And I lay in like one of those lounge chairs by the pool. It's all lit up, with like a gin and tonic or something, and just look up at the night. And it's the only time I
Yeah.
do that. I have a night sky at my home like most people, but I never spend any time around it except for on vacation. So those are my fun little things I like to do. But back in the movie, Sarah's asleep, of course, and then on the laptop, he didn't clear his history, which is very funny. In the film, she clicks on a link and they cut around it, but it was actually connected to the internet and went to a porn site. And so
Okay.
she reacted to it. They didn't anticipate that there was internet or that those were links that were actually active. She reacts again for real in the film, which I think is fascinating. She sees a video of a door closing. It's like ghost footage or whatever. And I love horror movies because those of us that enjoy them will watch a door close with more anticipation than like anything. It's just a door closing and we're just like staring at it like, "Oh my gosh, it's closing." Like it's so simple, but it's a fantastic thing in the movie. She hears something, grabs a recording tool but doesn't know how to use it, so she heads towards the noise and then Pat frightens her. And then we get our chapter 2, Madeline O'Malley. Sarah tells a ghost story to a little boy and the mom gets really mad about it.
Do you know the story of Madeline O'Malley? She was the woman that died here in the hotel. She hung herself after her fiancé stood her up on their wedding day. The original owners of the hotel thought it would be bad press and hurt the business. So, they hid her dead body in the wood cellar for 3 days before they could smuggle her out onto the loading bay. When the people of the town finally figured out what had happened here, they were outraged. So, the owners had to close the hotel down and were forced to sell it. Nobody came through here again until the 60s. And ever since then, people have reported seeing the ghost of Madeline O'Malley roaming the hallways waiting for her lover. Some say she's even looking to take up a new one.
Excuse me. What are you doing?
Mommy!
What's going on?
She said there's a ghost in the hotel. She said it's coming to get me.
I never said that.
What is the matter with you? He's just a child.
I don't know. It's not that bad of a story. So Pat and Sarah talk about how he saw Madeline's ghost while they eat bologna sandwiches. Lunch shifts when you're working in a hotel, is this a solo environment or is there like an employee lounge where you eat? I mean, what is that like?
It depends. Some of them have a break room. The front desk just tends to always eat at the front desk, even when they're not supposed to. They're definitely not supposed to both be eating at the same time, right? Because
Sure.
who's working,
Yeah.
right? But, and I want to go back to like a couple things. One, when she's delivering the towels to the room to Kelly McGillis, I was so cringe for me because I was just like, just give her the towels. Just give her the towels. Like you're
Yeah.
This movie I like because it sort of has fun with like slowness,
Mm-hmm.
just drags thing out like a fraction too long. And it really like, I don't know, it increases kind of the anxiety. So one, I really wanted her to give those towels and get out of the room and just
don't say anything.
Also like staff safety. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
They're just going in occupied guest rooms.
Yes.
Like, that's a no.
Yeah. You can't do that.
So they really push it there, and that's pretty cringe for me. As far as her clicking on the link, let me tell you, I've found many things
Oh
on
no.
public terminals to the point where like my IT guy is like, I'm considering bringing my own USB keyboard,
Whoa.
when I service these machines, and I'm just like, good Lord. And so I've tried different like domain controllers to just like shut that off on the work network. And to some degree, now this movie is kind of interesting because it's like, it's that weird changeover that happened in the hotel industry where it's like, they don't have a computer, right? His
Right. Oh yeah.
personal laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, and they're using hard keys. And like, you get the sense that there's no reservations coming to them over the internet.
Right.
And so it was kind of that changeover. And so like at that time, like not everyone had a personal device. Now I feel like they all just do that on their own phones.
Yep.
But in this movie, it's like, okay, you see it on a shared machine. But like when I was in that right before smartphones really took off, you never knew. I even had people, we had like a shared email, for the front desk to just receive correspondence, and you'd find someone responding to like a Craigslist personal just straight from that email. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. 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 The movie doesn't have cell phones either.
Yeah, which was beautiful because
Yeah.
it made me remember first of all, this is really true to real hotel life because the two front desk people, I feel like demographic wise, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Like that is who you would find to do that. She gets so upset when Kelly McGillis kind of like says she's sort of aimless.
Yeah.
And it's like, you are aimless. You're 25 and you're looking for ghosts in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's completely right.
Yeah.
And, I feel like that's the type of person you would get where it's like they live at home still. So like paying rent's not the biggest, it's not like they're hustling there for money, get in, get out. How much money can I make?
Yeah.
It's like my parents make me have a job so I don't get kicked out. And so you're just kind of like a floater. But like it took me back to that like time where it was like, I remember we used to like look at each other's faces in the break room. Like your original question was like, where do we eat? And it's like, we did interact more. Now it's like, as soon as you're on a break or whatever, they're just like, glued to the phone. So it's a neat time in the hotel business.
Yeah. It's almost like a timeless movie in that way. Like the only technology we have is the laptop, but like, personal computers have been around for a while. The lack of cell phones, which is like fantastic because there's no distraction from that. Yeah, like you said, the hard keys, actual keys to open rooms, not the flat cards, whatever those called. Yeah, it's really interesting. To touch on what you were saying, I think Ty West does such a great job in this film of connecting us and giving us moments, like real moments with these two, that's what grounds the whole film, is that you like, for once, even though Pat's playing this kind of curmudgeon, he's like harmless and you're kind of like, he's fine. And Sarah is just so sweet and innocent that you really want these two friends not to be murdered by a ghost.
Right. Yeah.
But my favorite scene is when she takes the trash out. It's what stuck with me from the first viewing. How she struggles getting this bag into the bin is one of the funniest things I've probably seen. It's so real. I've never worked in hotels, but I worked in retail. You still had to take out the gross garbage. It still wouldn't stay open. And then the fact that they get it to leak once it's trapped in the in the top. It's so great and gross.
No, that was a really good slapsticky scene. And my thoughts during it were like, that was pretty realistic where, first of all, she drags the trash through the doorway. And I'm like watching, I'm like, of course you're going to drag it and it's going to start a hole.
Yeah.
And then it starts a hole and starts leaking. So like she did that. That's a couple mil, commercial trash bag. Like it should hold up.
Yeah.
But she damages it by dragging it.
Yeah.
And then compounds the issues for herself. But I was thinking her technique of keeping it away from her leg.
Yeah.
Like hotel trash is gross.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I've had 2 employees get pricked by needles.
Oh, no.
By people not putting the cap on or whatever and just throwing them in the trash. And one of them was through into their leg. It just bumped them. And it's like, they were fine, but it's a scary trip to the urgent care.
Oh, yeah.
And then they have to go back in 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I understand where she's coming from. You want to keep that away from you. But also my thought was too, is like, we've invented the wheel as a society. Like there's probably some cart available to you.
There's gotta
bring
be.
the cart to the door.
Yeah.
Get your buddy to do it, Usually that would be delegated. Like I feel like the dynamic between those two, I think that's my favorite part, is because there is always like some, guy who's a little older who's in love with the front desk young lady who's a little bit younger, and I thought they tiptoed around that dynamic really well.
Yes.
But I feel like my experience would be like he would be like, "Oh, let me get the trash for you."
Yeah, if he was smarter, he'd be trying to win her over, but instead he's just
but
kind of flippantly a jerk.
He's really good at that.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have any kind of game at all. Next, she hears something in the shed, and it's coming from the basement, so she opens it, and it's a jump scare. It's a pigeon. And when they were making this, they were like, how are we going to make this work? And the person that was the pigeon handler was like, I'll just throw it at your face. And that's literally what they do. She opens the doors, and the person's just in there holding a bird and then throws it at you. And then you as an actor have to react. I was like, I guess that's about as good as you could do with a real pigeon. Next, she heads to the laundry room to record audio, and I love everything about what this movie does with sound. The rolling bassy hum I mentioned earlier, just like the slow pull of the camera in shots. It's just like, I love it. I watched it regular, as it is, and then I watched it with the commentary back to back, and it just made me love the movie even more. It's just, everything they do is so smart. And the movie itself at this point is kind of through playing games, which means perhaps we should play a game. Matthew, are you ready to play Ghosts with the most screen time?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a list of 10 ghosts, and you just tell me if they were in a ghost movie or not. Bonus points if you know the movie. Number 1, Elliot Hopper. Was Elliot Hopper a ghost in a movie?
No idea.
Good, because he's Bill Cosby in the movie Ghost Dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have seen Ghost Dad.
not
recently.
Not
since it came out.
Yeah. It would be weird otherwise.
Yeah.
Number 2, Jimmy Gambino. Jimmy Gambino.
I'm trying to think of a movie with mob-related ghosts. All I can think about is that movie they make in The Sopranos.
I mean, that could be it.
I don't know.
It's a ghost. It's a torso in the 13 Ghosts movie. He was a compulsive gambler who was dismembered. Yeah.
13 Ghosts has got some pretty good scares. I saw that in theaters.
Yeah, I saw. That's the only time I saw it, so I should probably.
Matt Lillard, right?
Yeah, Matthew Lillard. Yeah. Number 3, Sam Wheat. Sam Wheat.
Ghost.
Yes, he's Patrick Swayze's character in the movie Ghost.
All right.
Yeah.
So I get credit for the title on that one,
for sure. Double pay. Number 4, Kayako.
I'm going to say Ghost in the Ring.
Close. That's Sadako. This is Kayako from Ju-on or The Grudge. So you were very close on that one. Still counts. Number 6, The Judge.
The Judge. I feel like The Judge is from 13 Ghosts too.
Maybe, but the one I picked was John Astin's character in the movie The Frighteners.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I watched that one on VHS. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I was like, I couldn't wait to see it in the theater, and then I was like, this is really more of a VHS. It's weird this made it to theaters.
It's Peter Jackson, right?
Yep.
I remember seeing it. I love Michael J. Fox, and I remember seeing
same.
it. Like, this is a little better than it should be.
Yeah, it definitely was elevated by him, I think. Number 5, Bakaneko.
That sounds like a ghost to me.
Yep, that's the ghost cat that possesses the house in Hausu. Number 7, Coronado.
Ghost.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, they're all ghosts. It's Cheech Martin in the movie Charlie's Ghost: The Secret of Coronado from 1995. I've never heard of this, but it came up
I haven't seen that one.
During research, and I was like, Cheech Marin, okay. Number 8, Malcolm Crowe. This is probably the most well-known of the films.
Malcolm Crowe. The Crow. No?
Nope. But that would be weird. And he is a ghost. I should have went with that. No, it's Bruce Willis from the movie The Sixth Sense.
Okay.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, he's a ghost. Spoiler alert. Number 9, Daniel Robitaille.
Oh, man. That sounds so familiar.
Yeah, it's one that people forget about because they say his other name in the movie so many times. It's Tony Todd in Candyman.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, last one. Number 10 is Yuki.
Well, we already said The Grudge in the Ring, huh? So yeah. I couldn't tell you.
It's played by Kiko Kishi in the movie Kwai-Dan. So that is
okay.
That's all the ghosts. Back in the film. Next up, the same situation, but in the banquet room, she starts to pick up piano music. She heads down the hall, and we see a piano play itself. So, like, this is legit a ghost thing. Like, it's not just her hearing a sound, or I somehow skipped over the part where she woke up next to the ghost. Did that happen yet in the movie? I can't even remember. And
I think
just
that
watched it
comes a minute after.
Okay. So this is the first thing we see where we're like, oh, snap. Okay, this is like...
Yeah, we've crossed the bridge here.
Yeah, for sure. Something's happening. The actress asks her to be quiet, and Sarah snaps at the actress, so she invites her in for a drink. And this is exactly what you were talking about. This would not be okay.
No.
Although I don't want them to come into my room when I'm staying at a place, but I do like when you've been staying at a place for a couple days and you start seeing familiar faces on staff, you know? It's like we were just at the Disney California Grand Hotel, and the guy that was doing drinks and stuff at the pool had a chat with my brother-in-law about the movie Dig Dug, because he had a Dig Dug tattoo. And whenever we were there at the pool, he'd be like, "Hey, where's the guy?" Or, you know, it's like, and I like that rapport of having sort of, but I don't want to party him in my room. I don't need that.
Usually it's a red flag when a guest is trying to get you to come into the room.
Yeah, okay.
I've definitely, a lot of the bad things that the employees do in this movie and in real life, I've gotten to be the boss by not doing those.
Right.
So I don't have the personal experience, because it was just like, no, of course not. You don't go into, you know, like,
yeah.
But it definitely happens. And, you know, you do get the invitations every so often. And it's just like, no, I'm just going to give you your toilet paper. Enjoy your evening. You know?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. One time when we were at the Hyatt in the marina in San Diego, the guy working the bar, he's kind of winding it down, and there was this family in one of those cabanas, and they were just really rude and entitled, and you just got the vibe from the other side of the pool of just like, oh, what a bummer for that guy. And he's being super professional and closing out their tab, and he turns around, and it was getting dark, and the lights were just kind of coming up, and he got his leg stuck in one of those chairs. And I just hear him say, "I'm going in," and he just went into the pool in his clothes and shoes and everything. And we were like, "Oh man!" And that family like laughed at him, and he like just had to like get out of the pool. He was like sloshing around in his shoes, like closing out. I mean, it's like the last 15, 20 minutes of his shift, you know. My daughter was so bummed out by it that she has a food business that's freeze-dried candy, and so she had brought some, and so she said, "Will you go to the room and get a bag of the freeze-dried candy?" And so I did, and she went in and gave it to him, and he was like so moved by that he like gave her, I think, maybe a little s'mores thing so that she could make them by the fire. And the next year when we came, he remembered her. And he's like, "Anything you need, boss." And like, it was just like this moment of like being human outside of the job situation, and just
that's awesome.
Acknowledging a bummer and like trying to make something good out of it. And we get to see him every year when we go back to that hotel. So it's like, I love that stuff. But
very cool.
I wasn't like, "Come party in our room, bro." Like, you know, that didn't happen. Back in the film, the actress has a crystal pendulum, and the actress, being a medium or healer, is actually inspired by Ty working with Dee Wallace. He just thought Dee Wallace is such a nice person who's a healer or a medium. He thought, what if she wasn't nice? And that's where this character came from, which is awesome.
Do you know what this is? It's a pendulum. It's used to answer life's more, difficult questions. Do you know why I'm here?
You're speaking at an acting convention in Pottstown?
No. I'm not here for acting. I'm here as a guest at a healer's gathering.
So the actress says she's now a medium, and Sarah asks the pendulum if the spirit is Madeline. And we learn that there's 3 spirits and a terrible tragedy in the basement. A place where we're going to go multiple times in the movie. She heads to bed and then sees the dead Madeline next to her bed. Okay, this is the scene I was talking about earlier. It's a pretty good effect for this type of reveal. At first, I thought it was Pat because it looks like it's just a person under a sheet. But then you see her face and you're like, no, that's not him. She heads down to the lobby and she's not wearing pants, which that's a no-no. I don't even think I need to say it. You got to wear pants at work.
Also, too, this, talking about service and like, I feel like the character of the mother and son get painted as the villains on this.
It is weird.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And I am 100% on their side. Because, first of all, the towels not getting delivered comes up, and it's sort of this device for like, we need to keep going to the guest rooms, but it's like, they're frustrated because they don't get towels. That's frustrating. Like, I understand where she's coming from, and it's like, you clearly do nothing for 99% of your shift. You could even put the whole thing to bed by just grabbing a stack of towels, putting them at the desk, and when someone comes to complain about no towels, you could hand them their towels. Like, so many ways outside of it. So I really took their side through that, and then I would want to check out too if I'm seeing the employees in their underwear.
I mean, I can't get towels, so it's like, I'm done here. Are there any strange requests that you've had over the years?
Well, this is a big thing on Twitter, like early Twitter days, where somebody, very often when you're booking your reservation online, it has like a comments, like one field of form where you can put a request in or something like that. And someone had put in like 4 red M&Ms or something along those lines. And the hotel had seen it, and they just went and accommodated it. Then they took a picture of it, and it went viral early online. So then there was like a spate of people requesting like odd little things like that for a time. I think we probably indulged 1 or 2, but
yeah,
I don't know. For the most part, people just want like, they want to get cakes for their friends or get alcohol or something like that. People want rose petals a lot, especially in the Instagram era. And those are a no-no with the white bedding. So we have fake petals that we're happy to provide for their little photo shoots. So
okay, that makes sense. I mean, if Bone Thugs wanted 5 red M&Ms, they could have them.
I'd probably do it for them.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely would. It's worth a trip to the vending machine.
Yeah, right. Why make them do it, really? Then we get another title card. It's the next chapter, The Final Guest. A man arrives and demands room 353 despite the 3rd floor being closed. Let's talk floors. Have the places you worked in all had the 13th floor?
I've never worked in any place over 4 floors.
Okay. So no.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, though, they skipped 13 on the floors.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, so there's no like 113, 213?
It'll go straight from 112 to 114.
Whoa.
Yep.
That's fascinating to me.
Yep.
Huh.
Superstition persists.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So Sarah gets some sheets because she's a good, kind person. Then I love that Pat and Sarah drinking Schlitz beer. That's a brand. I don't even know if they still make that, but I remember seeing it in the 80s or whatever.
If I'm gonna stay up all night with you, you're gonna get drunk with me.
Cheers.
How you feeling?
Better.
Good. Keep drinking. It always helps.
There's a sweet little moment. They're hanging out on the floor. It just creates this little sort of comfort zone, even though he's like kind of trying to hit on her and she's just not having it. It's just a nice little moment that they have to take a break. And so we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this. Now, I have a question for you. What would Vice Squad be without Wings Hauser? Or House 3 without Brian James? Would you watch Panther Squad without Sybil Danning? No. It would be boring. That's how we feel about food and Marshall's Hot Sauce. Wake up your meals with these small batch sauces created and bottled by a chef. These aren't made in a co-packing plant. They're thoughtfully sourced, balanced creations with a focus on quality and flavor. The red chili lime, sweet and a little spicy, like Gage in Pet Sematary. Or habanero carrot curry, which is more spicy and ethereal, like Erotic Ghost Story. Marshall's Hot Sauce has something for everyone, including the mildest, which is a smoked habanero barbecue, kinda sweet, kinda smoky. It would be right at home on the range with Klaus Kinski and The Great Silence. You know what I'm saying. There's also a new line of seasonings with real ingredients dehydrated and combined into fantastic and easy ways to cook for yourself or your family. From the newer pasta and marinara packets, right on down to the explosive volcano sparkle, which I'm sure Zed in Police Academy 3, you know the part where he hangs out in the tear gas training? What a cut up. I'm sure he'd He'd want some sparkle. You'll find it all at marshallshotsauce.com. Enter VHUS podcast at checkout for 20% off. Plus, you might get a little something from me. So head on over, wake up your meals, not to mention Sarah's now teaching classes again, so you can learn hot sauces, pickling, all kinds of stuff. I'm hosting hot sauce tastings where you can hang out for an hour and just eat spicy stuff. But you'll find it all there, marshallshotsauce.com. And now, back to the show. And we're back. And so they head into the basement. There's a great shot here where she actually trips and gets a spider web. He gets a spider web on him. The trip is real, and so is the spider web. It was just going to be an outtake, but then when Ty West was editing, he was like, no, it just looks real because it was. And so they just kept it in, and I love commentaries just for that fact, that they're just, you learn that there's accidents. He's a very deliberate filmmaker, but he also will be playful, and I like that. I think that makes the film feel all the more authentic. So let's talk creepy, cavernous hotel basements and boiler rooms. Have you had to spend any time down in that sort of scenario?
So none of them have really had well, one of them kind of had a basement, but let's say this, every hotel has some weird space.
Right.
Let's put it that way. Maybe it's on the ground floor, but they're actually full of little strange nooks and crannies. Actually, the room I'm in, I'm a short distance away from an actual basement, and it is definitely creepy down there. This was actually like, it all kind of came rushing back when I watched this movie. It was like, I've had someone fall down the stairs just same way. Yeah. And it was pretty traumatic. They ended up taking a helicopter ride. And so I was like, my perspective on this was like, this movie is really about workplace safety.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You could have a whole OSHA class.
Yes.
Built around this movie, but it was like that hit close to home. And I was just like, and I guess that stumble, it really kind of foreshadows what's going to happen later. So it's probably really good they left that in.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah. Next, they try to contact Madeline and begin to hear whispers, or she does actually. Then Luke flips and admits that he made it all up, and he runs to his car, and then I get distracted because he has a Grateful Dead sticker on the back of his car, and I was like, I didn't have him pegged as a Deadhead, but interesting detail.
I would guess more of a Tool fan.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. But
yeah.
Or like, since he kind of has kind of a nerdy vibe, some kind of math rock band or something that like,
or Aphex Twin or something.
Yeah, or Aphex Twin for sure. So Sarah goes to the medium, who's passed out asleep. And again, you can't do this.
No, this was the one where I'm just like, all right, I'm not even on board anymore. This is too far.
She's touching people in their sleep.
You're entering an occupied guest room while a guest is asleep and touching them?
Yeah.
This is a lawsuit.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so she wakes up, she drinks some vodka and says, all right, let's go to the basement. The crystal breaks, and so she's like, we got to get out of here. Everyone's got to get it out of the whole place. So Sarah goes up to tell the man on the third floor. The door is open. She finds a note, and he is very bloody in a tub. I forgot about this guy till my rewatch, which is weird because it's very visually striking. The room next is also open, and she sees the bride hanging. It's like, okay, this is a lot. So Pat comes back. He goes up to get the medium, and then that's when Sarah hears her name, starts down the hall. This is one of my favorite shots. So she starts walking down the hall, and the camera stacks one spot. And then after about 3 or 4 steps, we start following along behind her. And this is such a weird, like, it makes me feel so weird that our point of view is starting to move, like we're creeping almost behind her. It's such a cool effect. She stops at the stairs, and then we see the dead man behind her, and she falls down into the stairs. She's in the basement. It's terrifying. Her having the flashlight and seeing the man with his arms outstretched in the dark, all naked. It's very stark and terrifying, but I love how this movie isn't like chopped up and edited like the early 2000s stuff, where I always say like a Marilyn Manson video type of thing, where it's just like all these they've taken out, moments in the film, so they're all jumpy and twitchy. It's just like creepier this way. It's more old school.
I think that's why this movie hit.
Yeah.
Because we got oversaturated on that, around that, like 13 Ghosts,
Right.
This was just like, this was patient, a little more like Hitchcock kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is really cool when it kind of starts moving like that. I thought that was the scariest part.
Yes.
When the old man is behind her on the stairs.
Yep.
Because I think this movie toys with you a lot. Like most of the jump scares for the first half are all like red herrings.
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden they kind of start delivering, but then they kind of go back with a couple, false flag type ones where he's like sitting up or she sits up on the couch and everything. But then this one was like, okay, this is actually not. Even the bride didn't really scare me a lot. I mean, I don't know, something about the wedding dress. I was like, that's not as spooky as like this guy was a real guy a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And now he's on the move. I thought that was just such a good moment when she stands up and he's there. Things that were running through my mind were like, okay, I was like, why is she with the flashlight? Why does she just turn on the lights? But then I remembered he had turned on the lights and the bulb had popped.
Yep.
But it's like, that's such a long space under there. I'm like, one bulb for that whole,
Well, he's not replacing bulbs if he's not bringing towels,
Yeah, exactly. Because honestly, that would have been my first instinct. Like, you turn light bulbs are probably right by the towels. Like, grab a light bulb. But these two don't look like they're the take initiative types.
Right. No. Good point. Yeah, and the fact that the old man, we don't see him really move. Like, I think his pupils maybe move, but then he's like just holding positions, which is way more disturbing than like reaching out and walking or something. It's just the fact that it's there, and when the light's not on him, you're like, I know it's still there. Like, it's worse.
Well, first of all, too, like, it'd been a while since this was like essentially like a fresh watch, because it's just over a decade, and I'd just seen it the one time. But like, right when I saw the guy like wanting that specific room, I was like, oh, he's gonna commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
same.
And so maybe they should have seen that coming. Or it's weird to like intervene. Like, sometimes things aren't going right when people are checking into hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And my first boss who trained me, he had told me like they had this was in Red Bluff at a Hampton, and that's on the 5, and they have like long haul truckers passing through there, and they had a guy who would leave his truck there and like fly home and come back and pick up his truck or whatever. You make those sort of relationships with the corporate guys.
Mm.
The truck was out in the parking lot, and it's been weeks, and it's like, what's going on? Where is he? And he's like, oh, well, he's checked in. He's actually not like home or something. Like, he's just checked into a room. It's like, well, when was the last time someone had been in there? And we kind of have a rule. It doesn't always get followed, but I try to enforce it, where we're never not in a room for more than 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can check in for a week, and you can put up your do not disturb, and we're gonna get permission. But like, once 3 days pass, like, we need to kind of peek in there, because like things can drift during a week.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So anyway, they end up going into his room, and he had committed suicide in that room, and he had spread out porn all over all of the bed, everything, and then killed himself. And it reminded me like that's where my mind jumped, is like, yeah, it's a real thing that happens. And that guy was telegraphing it pretty strongly.
Yeah.
The way he was coming in. But those two are pretty oblivious. Their last thought throughout the whole movie is the guests.
Right. No, great point. Yeah. I mean, he couldn't have really been any more outspoken about it.
No.
They're like, what time's checkout? He's like, I won't be needing that. And you're like, oh, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, man. So this is the sequence where she dies, and we learn that she did not get out of the basement. We hear that Pat was trying to get in. She couldn't get the basement hatch open because she had previously chained it closed after being hit with a pigeon. It's such a weird ending. I really, really like it and respect it, but it is so interesting because it leaves it open. And I've heard people have theories that like Pat's mom is who the actress is, and that he and her are like creating the situation so that they can then have a real true story of a haunting, that like, this thing happened and we were the people that were there at the time. And I don't think that that's true at all. Having even listened to the commentary, the actors had heard the same theories. But you can watch it and have that interpretation completely, because it's not ever disputed by any means. So then we get the epilogue. Claire's dead. The cops question Pat. They wheel out the dead guy, so that was real. They go to the police station to answer some questions. And then we get this shot, which is one of the things that I remembered outside of the garbage sequence, was this slow crawl down the hallway. And then we turn into a room. And I didn't see this the first time I watched the film, but there's a body that appears in the curtain. And it's so subtle that I had to pause it and be like, where is it? And it's just a slight switch of the wrinkles, and you can see the two legs. It's really creepy when you see it, and then the door slams, so you get like a little, your final little scare. I think it's a perfect ending for the film.
I wonder if it was supposed to be the young front desk girl.
I think that's who it's supposed to be.
Okay.
I
missed that.
I think she's the third ghost, because the first one is Madeline, the second one is the
right.
old man,
And
and the third one is
Yeah.
her, and that's her appearing in. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, but appearing in that curtain area. It's a bummer because we like her character so much.
Yeah,
but
it is a sad, but you kind of respect it that it's just like usually, they're going to give you someone's going to get away or keep it kind of a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like, no, they kind of hit you with it. Yeah, I was sad to see that happen.
Yeah, but that's the end of The Innkeepers. Any final thoughts for the film?
I looked up a couple things, last night after I watched it because I got curious about the hotel itself.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is clearly a real hotel. I wonder if it's still open. It very much is not.
Oh.
Yeah, it's still there, and it's fallen into disrepair. So it was funny because like the most recent news story for the Yankee Peddler was like Halloween, where the little local paper there, I think it's in Connecticut or something like that, the city is trying to get the hotel away from the owners. They want to take it into like receivership because they bought it with the promise that they were going to renovate it. It's like the center of town.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat, that opening shot. Actually, this was one of my favorite parts, was the postcards.
Yeah.
Like the in-camera edit of fading from postcard to postcard in the beginning. Because any hotel that's been around for a long time is going to have those retro postcards. And they're always really fun to kind of look at. So I thought that was a cool thing. But that kind of brought me in. I was like, okay, there's no way on this budget they could have like done that, some sort of effect. Like these are real postcards. And looking up that hotel, so they bought it, the current owners, and then they started to renovate. And this is where I really like hit home, is like old hotels are like a nightmare, because like a hotel, they're kind of just built sort of cheaply. All of them, they're, you're trying to maximize the guest rooms. Mm-hmm. But you do want to have some sort of grand opening space. I thought that hotel had a charming little lobby.
Yeah.
With the piano and the little library. Mm-hmm. So it's 63 rooms, and it's like, that's similar to the size. I've worked at the last 3 hotels I've worked at have all been 70 rooms.
Okay.
So that seemed like, okay, that's like a logical size. But I was like, when you look at it in the city there, that city was built up around it. Like there's the church on the hill and everything like that. So here it is, the center of town. These guys buy it. They say they're going to renovate it. They get in there and they realize we opened up a can of worms. Mm-hmm. Like doing the wiring, anything you go to do in an old hotel, like the contractors are all like, I don't want to do this. This is just like not done to code or whatever. It just becomes a nightmare. So then they kind of ran out of money or something like that. And I guess now they didn't properly board it up. So like locals have been like partying in there. I'm sure it's more haunted now than it's ever been. So it's there as like a vacant building with like graffiti on it. And so the city has been just trying to sue this guy and have a court date. And he's like dodged all these court dates. Wow. And they've just dragged it out to 2023. So it's been in this state that it's in now for like 7 years. He got granted like another extension to like get his act together to try to bring it back. But, I think it's a cool historic old hotel, but like the guests with Airbnb especially, like I don't know. That's going to be a tough one. Someone's going to have to dump some money into it to bring it back, but I hope they do, because it's clearly the heart of that little town. It has banquet area, and the real hotel has a bar.
So in the lobby, right by where they're checking guests in, there's a big bookshelf that you can see. There's a bunch of shots, but that bookshelf is actually where the bar is. They just put.
Oh, really?
That was their way of cheating it, is just covering up it with just a shelf. But right,
because I bet they had to keep the bar open.
Yes,
that was probably one of the only parts that was making money at the hotel at that time.
I think it
was. I also
was.
thought it was interesting. They definitely didn't have access to like the real laundry room, and I definitely think that would have been a creepy place to do like shots, because like they just show a little linen closet, but like the housekeeping area would be some big dark place full of carts. So that hotel doesn't have an elevator, right? It's just there. They're going up and down stairs. Yeah. I bet you the real one does have an elevator, but there would be like service people going up and down. I feel like everything happened on the second floor because that's probably the floor they had access to.
Yeah.
you read about like 750 grand. I thought they did like a really awesome job with the budget, you know, and I think now it's just this kind of like neat little time capsule, you know, of a weird time when those hotels were kind of dying, you know, and they're still out there and they should be supported to the degree that, you know, your tolerance for like inconsistency, because there's certainly going to be bare bones staff like that. All in all, I appreciate the depiction of some true front desk slackers.
Yeah.
They literally are there doing anything but their job, you know, for most of the time. And they cross so many lines of going in guest rooms, drinking on the job, and violate all sorts of workplace safety things. And we ended up with a really bad workplace accident. So I think that the real ending, first of all, I think that the guy would have been in handcuffs because they wouldn't have bought his story.
No.
You know? And I think that it would have really resulted in a huge lawsuit about the safety of those stairs and everything else about that place. I did like that the owner was in Barbados and is clearly checked out.
Yes.
One thing I thought about was the cardboard sign on the door, like going out of business. Like, why would a hotel do that? Even if you were going out of business, if you're paying labor there, you want to get every dollar to the last moment. You still got notes to pay. So, but I did respect, like, one thing staff loves to do is make signs that like the management would never approve being put up. Anything that like will make it so I don't have to talk to a guest.
Nice.
I don't have to answer questions. Like, no, in fact, you're here to talk to the guests. Like, that's why we're paying you to be here. So let's pull all these homemade signs. If you want to put a sign up, we got to get it approved.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Not just
But
a handwritten.
The owners wouldn't have done that. It's just the staff doing it, so they don't have to talk to anybody, so they can do as little as possible. But and part of me wishes, you know, there's an alternate timeline in my head where they go out on a date or something like that.
Right.
You know, you are kind of rooting for them to come together. I was surprised. I felt like he would have been sadder. He just wasn't that sad. Maybe he was in shock, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that fuels the theory that he was in on it, is that like he's very the same. Like like this lady he had a huge crush on, like, is dead, and he's just kind of like still just kind of a cold jerk, you know? It's like weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I also think there's just a lot of subtlety to the film that keeps it like very streamlined. So I think if we had this big weepy Pat Healy at the end, I don't know, it'd feel differently. But instead we have this like kind of indifferent, strange ending. And I think that really works. I think Ty West, I don't know if you've seen a lot of his other films, but
I haven't, but I heard that the new one he did with the girl with the axe, what's that called?
Pearl.
I heard that's really good.
Yeah, so I mean, X is the movie before that, Pearl's the sequel, and then Maxine is the third one that's coming out soon. But like, he's just one of those directors that, whether it's House of the Devil or this, or definitely the Western he did, In the Valley of Violence, that has John Travolta and Ethan Hawke in it. So kind of like bigger stars, and it's a Western, but because Ty he just knows the shots he wants, and he has such a great cinematographer that like any small amount of money, he can just like spin it into something that's like entertaining, great to look at. And when it ends, you're just kind of like, that absolutely wasn't a waste of my time, you know? Like he's one of those directors, and he's now like getting a lot of heat because of like Pearl and X and soon to be Maxine. And I can't wait to see like what he gets. I hope he doesn't just do comic book movies. I hope he keeps getting to like push different art forms and really work with like in-camera stuff, because I think that's where he really like shines.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye out for him. One of my favorite horror movies that came out recently was probably Barbarian, which I know.
Oh, Zach Cregger,
Yeah. I can't remember what character the woman from Innkeepers is in Barbarian.
Oh, so
is she one of the victims?
Sarah she does a voiceover on the TV. She plays, I think, a nurse and something else. She's married to the director, Zach Cregger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
yeah. I'm from Michigan. And I just love the kind of the Michigan, California thing in that movie when like he's just driving down, you know, beautiful Highway 1 a couple hours to the south of me, and then back in like, even though I think it was somewhere in the Balkans or whatever that they filmed it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They captured Detroit, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the best new horror movie that I've seen recently.
Yeah, well, I mean, you should definitely watch X and then Pearl. The thing that I really like about his films is too, like, he's one of those directors where you'd hear someone say, like, they get the assignment. And I think the assignment being what we want to see as an audience is definitely in line with what the director wants to put on screen. So, like, in the movie X, there's a part where a lady is feeding a crocodile, right? And I just see it for a second. I love crocodile movies. I have a whole collection over here of alligator and crocodile movies. And I'm like, most directors wouldn't have a scene where you're going to get that crocodile or the alligator doing something in this movie because that's not what it's really about. But you get it because there's a scene where someone does get offed by that creature. And when I was watching it, I was like, he gets it. He gets what I want to see. Like, he's giving me this other story, but he's not just going to introduce an alligator and not have it eat somebody. And, like, that's just what he's such a consistently creative, and just the payoffs are always great, even when they're subtle. Like in this ghost story, it's like, if he's going to have a ghost, it's like, here it is presented to you, and you go, okay, well, perfect, well done. I love The Innkeepers. After this rewatch, I was like, I love it even more. So I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation, and that you mentioned The Innkeepers as one of the movies that, like, represented your work. So I was like,
yeah,
let's do this. Which brings us to final questions. It's the last questions. It's no longer about the film. It's just about you and your experiences. What's the best day like for you with this profession?
Probably no one calling out.
Yep. Okay. Fully staffed.
Baseline. Yeah. Happy guests. Everything's kind of clicking. Good weather. I've always worked on the California coast. And so, like, if it's just a beautiful day and, like, people are happy, no one sets out to work in a hotel. No little kid is like, I'm going to work in a hotel someday. Okay. It's a collection of odd ducks, that's why I love this movie, captures that so well. But when it's all clicking and we're able to provide genuine hospitality, and, a lot of people say the most important guest is the one who's in front of you. And I definitely agree with that. But I take pride in, like, the further you are away, like if you're from, like, Africa or from, like, Central Asia or Iceland or something like that, I'm going to go out of my way to make sure you have, like, a really cool stay or a really good time, because I feel more of a duty. Someone traveled from so far away. So, like, a good weather, people showing up, happy guests, meeting people from far away. That's definitely the best part of working in hospitality.
That's rad. I love that. What would you say, I have to ask it, is the worst?
The worst is, I don't know if it's employees or guests. Yeah. A bad employee can really put you in a bad position, but there are also some just completely unreasonable guests. But, like, I liked in your anecdote with your family when, like, you guys kind of stepped in. I do notice when someone is just being, like, completely just out of line at the front desk or making a scene or something like that.
Very entitled.
A lot of times, other
people.
Cool guests will, like, come in, and that's always cool, where you're just like, all right, we just did this in front of an audience. Right. At least the audience is still on my side, right? And it's just like with guests, like, you always got to take the high road, and it's just
customer service,
or it's going to ruin your day. Yeah. Right. So, like, I just try to get them in, get them out. Try to zero in on what you actually need. What's the real problem? How do we get you back to enjoying your vacation? But some people they pick weird hills to die on, and they, like, want you. It's more important that they see it from that you see it from their point of view. Yeah. And so, like, I try to do that, but sometimes people are just so unreasonable. Like, I mean, I always call it, like, travel rage. They just throw little tantrums. Like, something's going on in their life. The dynamic of the trip, just not right. And sometimes it's just got to go somewhere. And it's like,
well, that's the thing that I like hearing from you is, like, you automatically are talking about the antecedent to their behavior rather than just being like, well, clearly this person's an asshole, which can be true, but you're immediately looking from a human perspective of, like, there's something not right in their life to have them behaving this way, and, like, and that's a healthy way to look at human behavior, because if you're doing anything with customer service, there's going to be even 1 in 100 people, and that person can, like, derail a large portion of your day. Until
it really can.
And sometimes it's that with that next person right after that you go, oh, that's right, there's good in humanity. And that altercation with that person was like, it helped me shake it off, that the next person was nice and understanding.
Yeah. And it's better too when, like, you're not alone at the hotel. Like, someone else can go up front for a little bit and you can take a walk and cool down. But like, people will get you so mad you're shaking. Yes. Like, and I used to, when I was younger, I would like battle guests. Like I would be more combative and be like, no, this person is out of line, and like I'm gonna stand up for myself. And then you just grow up and you're just like, it's just a pissed off guest. It happens. Maybe they're right. Maybe they have something to it. Maybe they're wrong. Here we are now. How do we move forward?
Yeah.
And so that definitely comes out of like just experience of being like, I'm not gonna let this ruin my day, and but there'll be interactions where like I'll look back and be like, I could have done better, or or whatever. But like,
has that. Yeah.
you can only do that so far. Like, just try to do better next time. You're gonna have a lot more opportunities to nail it, But like little stuff like where I'm listening to, like the place where they give you the espresso, or like big is remembering someone when they return.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff's cool. That makes people, they're just acknowledging people. I work at a place right now where I'm in like the forest, on the coast, in like really mountainous place. I move around property on foot. And so I get to interact with guests and be like, hey, did you see there's a banana slug over there? Or like, oh, there goes a little fox, or here come the turkeys or whatever, or check out this tree. I really enjoy just like cruising around on foot and just interacting with people. That's a lot of fun. And I'm always down to play ping pong with the guest or play chess. Those are fun little times you get to do that stuff.
Yeah, we noticed that at the Hyatt in the marina. We'd see like the general manager or whoever. That's sort of your title?
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of just floating around, checking out, like not above resetting chairs by the pool or making sure towels are in where they need to go, or saying hi and being like, glad you're back, good to see you again. And we're like, wow, like that's a skill set we never thought about with the job.
It's good leadership, because like your staff's going to pick up on what you do. That's the other thing too, where you can't get really mad at guests, because like if you pop off to a guest, you just gave everyone around you permission to do the same.
Right.
And like I think about in the movie when like she's wanting her towels and they're giving her snappy one-liners. I did think it was funny here is like, I know what room you're in.
Oh yeah, I work at the hotel.
Yeah. And so like I was like, that we do have a little bit of license to be like dry with the obvious.
Sure.
And sometimes you can work in little jabs like that to make you feel good, but it's like that's not the point. Like she was right.
Yeah. The whole time.
Yeah. But then they high-fived when she leaves, and I'm like, man, these guys are awful.
Yes, yeah. Very cruel for no reason.
Because if I was approaching that same shift like they were doing, bang out the towels. You only have 3 occupied rooms. This is taking like 5 minutes, and you don't have to deal with anyone the whole shift.
Yep.
I think I noticed is the phone never rang, and I guess that makes sense, but it's like the phone is a big part of hotel life.
Yeah.
So that's the worst is when like through COVID and stuff, like I was on the front desk for like a couple weeks straight, because in California, you got the 10 days extra sick pay, like through the state.
Okay.
Like, immediately when that went through, everyone just took 10 days off. Like I didn't test positive, but I was around someone who did.
Oh yeah.
I gotta stay home, and it was like, okay, well, I guess I'm staying. I've been here since 7. I guess I'm going straight through to 11. When you're there by yourself and you're having to constantly leave, that's a big thing with front desk people is like they never want to be at the front desk.
Right.
And I did appreciate that. Like those two were hardly ever at the front desk unless they were drinking or looking at the internet. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So my times when I'm like running from you're hitting the elevator, you're running up to the 4th floor, you're delivering some towels, and then you're going back and you're just like praying, like, did someone come in? You're going to look back on the cameras and stuff. And like the camera systems are always outdated. You can't jump around. You have to I don't know. Hotels can be super creepy at night. And I love that they used a real hotel for this movie. And I think the hotel is like, it's such a small cast, right?
Yeah.
And I think Kelly McGillis gave it like that gravity of like being a seasoned actor and kind of like make grounded in reality. But I think the hotel is a really good character. And I think they found a hotel with a long history. I promise you, long before this movie was ever shot, there's 10 or so employees who are swear up and down that hotel's haunted.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So like that adds a little air to it. I think the old hotels, the historic hotels, like, yeah, that's more fun. People should keep those places alive, or else they're all just going to end up concrete monoliths with no character,
Or this thing that happens where like people revamp a Motel 6 with like cool Instagram plastic like plants and stuff, and then you walk in and
Right.
you're like we went to a place in Palm Springs, and they literally had tied pool noodles, those styrofoam
Yeah.
things, and nailed them to the wall over the toilet. And we were like, "What is this?" Like, and it still smelled like an old hotel, but they made it look like they're like, "This is new," and you're like, "This isn't new. You're not fooling anybody." I would rather stay in an old place with character than in a place that's like been a revamped like Motel 6. But
Yeah, that's the move. Retro chic.
yes,
I've definitely a number of places try it. If you do it right, you can lean into it
Yeah.
and have fun with it and get new carpet and new, or sometimes I've heard the other thing is lipstick on a pig.
yes, that's what it was for sure at this hotel.
Yeah.
And like, it's the same hotel, but now you're charging me $400 more a night. Like, okay.
Which was the point all
Yeah,
along,
I get
right?
it. I get it, but I didn't feel good about the situation.
Well, it's funny, when I first got into hotels, I was like, all right, this business is about like, we're trying to make money as a business, right? And then I realized, like, over time, watching them change hands, it's just a real estate play.
Yeah.
It's the same way people are flipping houses, they flip hotels. And so all they're looking for generally is for the hotel to cover the note, maybe a little cash flow, because they just want to flip it.
Mhm.
And like, obviously everything in real estate the last 20 years, a lot of these historic hotels are like falling by the wayside, like actively. And so when I do get a chance and I'm traveling, I see some place that's got like a bunch of character.
Mhm.
Like, I'm always delighted when I find some place, and I like talking to the night auditor and,
Yeah.
getting the vibe. The night auditor is someone who they're going to definitely chew your ear a little bit. Like, they've got no one to talk
Yes.
to. It's 8 hours. They're just killing time. Usually that night audit checklist takes like all of 30 minutes.
Right.
And then the smart ones either go to school while they're doing that, do online courses. Some people will just watch 4 movies,
Mhm.
Like my brother's night auditor for a couple of years, and like he just watched old kung fu movies all night.
Yeah.
That's not a bad way to pass a shift. If I had to go back to hourly in a hotel, night auditor 100%.
Yeah.
Talk to like a couple of guests. You don't have anyone to answer to you while you're there. You just manage your workload, and it's like, it is kind of cool if you're a night person, just sort of like cruising around.
Mhm.
But like, I definitely am like watching my back if I have to go down to the elevator room, or just like, it's weird. It's just,
Yeah.
they're big, dark buildings. You can be the one of 4 people there. It'd almost be less scary if it was completely empty, but just that there's a random person. So a door opens over here. Was it a guest? I don't know.
Right.
And then for me, it's always been being on the 101, like who could walk in, because I've had some seriously weird customers, like weirder than you can imagine.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Well, where can people find you? Anywhere people can find you?
On Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy on Twitter who likes movies and the outdoors and just
Love it.
kind of goofing around. That's how I found you.
Yeah.
And through just various movie accounts I follow, and then you popped up, and I think it was your prompt with name a good partnership duo. And I love 80s movies.
Yes,
and
yeah.
so I, of course, threw Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger up there. And we kind of went from there. But now I'm a listener, and I enjoy the podcast. So
thank you.
What's
your handle on there?
It's MI to CA Matt, like Michigan to California Matt.
There it
so
is.
MI the number 2 CA.
Yes.
MATT. And always down to chat. Canon films.
Yeah.
I love. Yeah.
That's the good stuff.
Canon, Trauma. Yeah.
There's a great book. Maybe you've read it, but if not, Sam Furstenberg, that directed like a bunch of stuff for Canon. He put out a book. It's big. I have it over here. It's great. It's got stories about like you name it, and it's Canon. Of course, the Canon guides are fantastic too. But hearing his like firsthand tales of these movies that like, if you loved those 80s movies like as much as I did growing up in a video store, it's amazing to hear people talk about like, yeah, we just went there and did this, and you're like, but it's this movie. Like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, it's really good. But
I'll check that out. They're the best in my opinion. They're just mind blowing.
Mind blowing for sure. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for sharing your stories of working in hotels.
My pleasure. I had a lot of fun.
Fantastic. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VH Us.
Every day you have to cry,